Welcome to the Will and Dave Show, where we talk about hard things whether it is comfortable or not. We think these conversations are necessary and important. We think that having different opinions is crucial to a healthy discourse. So please, sit back, get comfortable, and enjoy.
Well, good evening, William. Sound issues aside, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Well, I'm here, live and kicking.
We're going to hope for the best of my mic, but apparently it's running really hot tonight. So,
well, there's worse things to be doing. Oh, you know what I never did? I never changed the date.
Someday we'll get around to it.
Just a second. I will do that right now because I have the power.
There you go. While you're doing that, I'll talk about our sponsors. So thank you all for tuning in tonight to the Will and Dave Show. We are sponsored by two sponsors. Both are longtime sponsors, but the first one is Stitch by Susan. Stitch by Susan is, we're going to call her a media conglomerate, a fledgling media empire. There we go. Stitch by Susan is both the name of a quilting company and a quilting course provider, but also Susan also hosts a podcast, Measure Twice, Cut Once, which is blowing us out of the water right now. And she's gracious enough to support our show as we try to grow ours. So if you'd like to check that out for all of your quilting interest and just general easy listening podcast interests, check her out.
Yeah. And our other sponsor, Northern Truss, who may or may not be related to me and you and be your boss. But he generously supports the show. Now, what'd be really cool is if he generously supported the show by watching the show, and then he could critique us and he could give you a harder time than he does already. So, Mallory, if you happen to catch this, we're sniggering in your general direction.
That's a word. I like that word. Good word.
Snigger. And if you need roof systems or floor systems or roof metal or any of the accoutrements, is that the word you used?
Accoutrement, yes.
Accoutrement. Reach out to Northern Trust in Fort St. John, 250-787-3033.
Look at you with the number. Nicely done.
And if you'd like to support the show, you can do so at www.buymeacoffee.com/Will and Dave Show, because we were not able to afford the in front of Will and Dave Show. For the low price of $5, you can get us a coffee and help support the show. Buymeacoffee.com, Will and Dave Show. Okay, the money grubbin's out of the way, Will, and I just realized there's now 815 days in May. I look at my lower third. I thought I deleted the 8, but I did not. So we have 815 days. So you know what? We're just going to do that. It goes away.
Perfect. How about that?
So, William, you had a rough week, hard week?
Yeah, trying to adjust to a new sleep schedule running. We've all been running. Everyone,
yes.
Like you, me, Mom, Allison, we've all been running this past week and a bit. Honestly, I've been enjoying the running. The running has actually been great. Even the getting up at 5:30 in the morning to do the runs has been fine. It's getting to bed on time that's proving to be the difficult part.
We need to change the terminology. Is if you're getting up early in the morning to do the runs or to get the runs, it just sounds bad as you're getting the runs. So let's just change that phraseology just a little bit.
Speaking of phraseology, I actually heard a wonderful piece of advice while like doing some research around running and all this stuff.
Yes.
And there's this I'll call her a fitness influencer, I guess, on Instagram. She does like fitness and mental health stuff. But anyways, she's saying, if you had let's imagine that you have a spouse or a partner, like a romantic partner, and every time that they do something that you need for your mental or physical well-being, whether it's helping you with a specific chore that you hate, or talking in a specific way because you find that more helpful, or basically anything that they're doing to cater to you to make your life easier, happier, and healthier. And every time they did it, they rolled their eyes and said, ugh, fine, let's get it over with. How would that make you feel? Pretty crappy.
It'd make me feel crappy.
Yeah. So why do we do that to ourselves? When we're taking care of our own body's needs, when we're taking care of our own mental health needs, why do we just, fine, let's get it over with? I'll do it if I have to. It does hurt, but it does.
I've been running. It hurts.
Yeah, but when you're doing it for your spouse, when you're doing something for your significant other, you do it with enthusiasm because you care, because you love them. And it should be the same when we're taking care of ourselves. We should be able to care for ourselves and appreciate ourselves and do it enthusiastically.
Okay,
It's something to aspire to. I'm not there.
I'll grudgingly give you the idea, the concept. In practice, it sucks because it's not quite the same. With the partner analogy,
there
are fringe benefits, and so you don't really roll your eyes when they ask you
There's
something because
fringe benefits to taking better care of yourself.
yes, but they're not as gratifying. In the long run, they
Sure,
should be, but they're not.
they should be. They're not necessarily
Yes.
immediately gratifying. That's
Yes.
true. Changing how you speak about a certain topic around a significant other isn't necessarily immediately gratifying, but over time it pays dividends.
So we've
Anywho,
been running.
it's something to aspire to.
Yes. So we've been running, you and I and the family, as you
Yes.
mentioned, and it's this app. I was reading about the app, and the app is getting a lot of buzz because it has to do with the interval training thing that I guess it's been a thing for a while. I don't know.
Yeah, interval training has been for
Like
quite a while, yeah.
So my interval is on the couch for a while, on the chair for a while, the remote in the right hand, the remote in the left hand, and so the name of the app is Couch to 5K, which is apropos because it really is Couch to 5K for me.
Yeah. It's meant for people like us who don't run. Like neither you and I have really run recreationally ever.
No,
It's not that I know of.
not in my recent history, like 40 years. No.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting about it though is that it hurts. Like it literally hurts. I come back and Susan looked at me and said, "Your ankles are swollen." I'm like, "No kidding." Like I'm out for 30 minutes and I'm running and walking and running and rocking. It hurts. But enough about me.
We're not used to putting that much stress on our ankles. We don't do that anymore. Like I mean, my situation is a little bit different because I put in like 4,000 steps at work every day.
You work a fair bit.
Yeah, so I'm being very careful with my running that like I can handle the running in terms of like breathing and my muscles. They can take the current like where I'm at, which is 8 cycles of running for a minute and then walking for a minute and a half. Everything in my body can take it except my ankles. My ankles are having a hard time keeping up with that pace. And so I'm trying to find ways to help with my ankles, whether it's bracing them, whether it's something I can take to help them repair themselves a little faster, some sort of supplementation, something in my diet that'll help with that. But yeah, it's for me, the challenge has just been getting to bed. My internal clock says bedtime isn't until like midnight, but that doesn't work when I'm getting up at 5:30 in the morning. That doesn't cut it. It's just not enough rest. I think if I could fix my sleep schedule, that'll probably help with the ankles too. It'll give my body enough time to actually fix itself.
Running. There should be laws against running.
See, I'm embarrassed by the fact that me, as a creature of this planet, can't just run without I can't sprint without potentially seriously injuring myself. And how sad is that? Like the most basic of like hard physical exertions, just running, and I can barely do it.
So I can run for very short periods of time. I play pickleball, I play tennis, and there is running involved in that. And I'm actually half decent at those sports. It's the long range running, the 30 minutes. It's going to kill me. I know it is. I'm going to have a heart attack. Your mom's going to be rich and everybody be happy. Make sure you're in good with mom.
Well, I like how the app puts it really well at the end. It says to gauge whether you're too tired or not is you should be able to talk at the end of your run, but not sing.
Huh.
I think that was
I didn't hear that
after the first one. She didn't like the little app didn't say it, but at the end of it, when I was looking through it, it was like, "Hey, congratulations! Check on yourself after your run. Make sure you drink at least X amount of water. If your muscles are sore, that's good. If your joints are sore, you might need to take a little. You might need to leave off a little bit.
Yeah, my joints are sore.
So heavily that you can't talk, you're too tired. If you're breathing so heavily that you have a hard time singing, that's just about right.
So I want to say,
mm-hmm.
I have a pair of badges on mine. How many badges do you have? I have Lionheart and Determination.
I probably don't. I know I have the Lionheart one. I literally.
I think you show up, you get the Lionheart.
Run. Yeah, I just turn the app on, hit the go button, and I don't look at it. I don't look at any of the metrics. I haven't like recorded any of my tracks or anything like that.
See, I would notice that because all the rest of us in the group all share our run when we're done, except for you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we're not convinced that you're actually doing it. Actually, there's no proof of the fact.
Well, I can start posting proof of the fact.
We know Allison and your mom and I are doing it, but you and Austin. Is Austin doing it?
Not that I know of.
Okay, so your mom and Alice and I are posting proof of our runs. You are not.
Okay.
We're not sure that it actually happens. We need proof, including
I'm
the
the guy
map.
I'm the guy who got this ball rolling in the first place.
And there's no evidence of that.
Your future health and well-being can thank me later, whether I was telling the truth or not.
I'm sure your mother will thank you later for getting me off the couch for 30 minutes at a shot. Okay, well, William, let's get to the show. Get to the topic of the day.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
National Day of Prayer.
Yep, believe it or not, I'm excited about the National Day of Prayer. I want to give a quick shout out. He doesn't listen to the podcast, but I want to give a quick shout out to my buddy Chase, who put me onto this in the first place. Him and his wife are card-carrying members of this organization, and I'm really excited to represent them on our itty-bitty little podcast.
So of which organization?
The Satanist Temple, Satanist Church, what are they called? They are card-carrying Satanists.
Why?
Purely for fun.
Okay.
They get a cool little card that they can keep in their wallet, and I think he got a necklace. And it's pure. It's like a joke. The whole thing is a big joke. The outfits, the imagery, the iconography, it's all a big joke.
Iconography.
There's
another new word, iconography either.
In our thumbnail, you put up the image of was it Bahamut?
I have no idea. I googled
it's some
Satanist and that was what came in.
Well, that I believe is their
okay,
quote unquote mascot.
I don't know. I saw that and I grabbed that and one of Billy Graham. I figured that's about as close to God as we can get.
Yeah.
So we had lots of range of topics for this week, and we chose this one this afternoon, to be honest. But
yeah,
it's something that is what's the word I want? It's easy to pick sides on this one,
I guess.
As your point was, if there is a National Day of Prayer, doesn't matter who we pray to, and do we really need a day of prayer if all we're going to represent is actually would be our prayer or Christian prayer?
Yeah.
And so we're gonna play a bit of the clip, and then we'll come back and we'll have a chat, because I think it's telling.
Yeah, but I want a quick little
go ahead.
Background coming into the clips. What we're showing is there was at some monument in Idaho, I believe, some national building in Idaho, there was an event. A whole bunch of Christians were there for the National Day of Prayer. They were doing a marathon reading of portions of the Bible, and a bunch of people, a bunch of Satanists showed up, and they had their own microphones and their own speech they did. And the gentleman that we're going to show clips of is the gentleman who delivered a speech for them, and I thought it was a very good speech, honestly, costumes aside. So now we can lead into the clip.
Okay.
Greetings to my fellow members from the Satanic Temple. Hail Satan.
Satanic Temple.
Thank you for inviting me to participate in this National Day of Prayer. And to the state of Idaho, look what you've done, inviting prayer into your secular halls. To be fair, I am an atheist activist who doesn't believe in gods or devils, and neither does the Satanic Temple. But in the spirit of this day, here we go.
Okay, I want to pause it there. So, am I understanding you correctly that the whole organization is a joke?
Sort of.
It's sort of a spoof. He's an atheist. He says he's an atheist.
Yeah,
and it just is a spoof to dig at Christianity, basically.
If you boil it down and like look at it in a really reductionist point of view, yes. But the idea is that they exist as an organization to mirror what they think is worth criticism within Christian associations. So their idea is that if you can have an organization that benefits and gets tax breaks for being a religious organization for a God that we don't believe exists, why can't we? And so they do. And they just picked the iconography of Satanism and the terminology because they are kind of in response to the greater Christian church.
Okay, we're going to come back to this, but okay.
Let's all bow our heads, whether we agree to or not, and join in the verse of the Satanic Prayer. Hear our Satan prayer. our anti-Nicene Creed. Hear our Satan prayer. For the coming of seed. Hear our Satan prayer. Unholy Ghost, Overlord and Taker of life. Now, how did that feel to the folks who are not Satanists? Most of the Christians here think nothing of hijacking our public halls of power with their spoken prayers, even though not everyone participating or even paying the taxes to keep the lights on in government buildings are all Christians. Is that hard for Christians to understand? Do they already know this and disrespect everyone else by forcing others to bow to their God?
So many things to unpack in this, William, because I do think that it is a you're gonna get my blood boiling tonight. To equate the idea of Satanism and the idea of Christianity in the same breath is to equate analogies are hard, but a bottle of vitamin C and a bottle of cyanide. The purposes of the two are different. The results of the two are different. The goals of the two are different. The effects of the two are different. And to equate them and say they are equal, and that either one ought to have equal amounts or no usage in the halls of power or in schools or in public spaces, I think is disingenuous.
See, I disagree.
Oh, no. Say it ain't so.
So I want to, in response to that, I want to quickly read off the tenets, the 7 fundamental tenets of the Satanic Temple.
Okay.
These are the tenets, okay?
Yes.
One should strive to act with compassion and empathy towards all creatures in accordance with reason. The struggle for justice is an ongoing and necessary pursuit that should prevail over laws and institutions. One's body is inviolable, subject to one's own will alone. The freedoms of others should be respected, including the freedom to offend. To willfully and unjustly approach upon the freedoms of another is to forego one's own.
Okay, hold that thought right there. Hold that thought right there.
Yeah?
Which number is that?
That was 4.
Number 4. It should be okay if we offend people.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with the National Day of Prayer? If it offends
nothing's
those,
wrong with the National Day of Terror.
We'll get to that. But he complained in his speech. He said, "Why do you think it's okay for you to do this, even if it offends those of us who don't believe in it?" He used those words.
His concern is that there's a government building that's being used for it, and he believes in separation between church and state. He doesn't believe the government should have any place in supporting.
He said, "Why do you feel it's right to do this if there are those of us who don't agree with it?"
Yeah.
Who cares who pay? He's offended by it. Who cares? He says in there it should be okay to be offended.
He thinks it's one-sided. He thinks it should apply to everyone. That's why they showed up. They're not necessarily showing up to say Day of Prayer shouldn't exist, but they're saying that, hey, if there's going to be a Day of Prayer, we get to do it too. But he's also going to criticize the lack of separation between church and state while he's there. Let me quickly finish these, then we can carry on with the clips. So number 5 is beliefs should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. One should take care never to distort scientific facts to fit one's beliefs. Number 6 is people are fallible. If one makes a mistake, one should do one's best to rectify it and resolve any harm that might have been caused. And 7, every tenet is a guiding principle designed to inspire nobility in action and thought. The spirit of compassion, wisdom, and justice should always prevail over the written or spoken word.
So I'm going to leave you. We have to talk about this for a minute. I'm going to get the next segment of the video.
So this is where it really shines to me how the Satanic Temple is, while they do exist as something of a parody of Christianity, their core tenets are good. And so I don't find there to be much I don't see any friction necessarily, from my point of view at least, as someone who doesn't believe necessarily in the Christian God, that I don't think that there's any difference between the two. They're both believing in, well, one tongue in cheek, but they're both believing in something that doesn't exist, and they're basing a bunch of core tenets around it. The difference being the Satanic Temple is doing it based on a human need and human cooperativeness.
So we're going to go to his
Christianity
next
relies
clip
on God. Yeah.
because I have a lot to say to this.
Okay.
Women's reproductive rights. No religion should have the threat of disfellowship hanging over the heads of our leaders. Which brings me to the point of keeping our government secular. Because once you open the door to religion and government, religious sects, even Baptists and Catholics, fight over who will rule over us. I came here from Texas, where they like to believe in a fantasy they call American exceptionalism, where they pretend as if the U.S. was a Christian country, even though the Founding Fathers explicitly said otherwise. Even our
oh man, William.
We can argue, there's an argument to be made that America is a Christian country because of the majority of its population identifies as such.
Well, it did at one point. I think the gap has
50s.
narrowed now. Well, early on, I think it did. It was founded. The exploration of the United States initially was for exploration and religious freedom.
There's some history to that, but that's not the entire truth. But yes,
It's a
sort of.
okay.
It's a
Explain
sort of.
yourself.
There's
Mr.
a lot of
History
evidence.
Squalor.
There's a lot of historical evidence that points to American immigration over to where we are now from Britain, less of a escape from religious persecution and more of, how to word this. It was in Europe, the Catholic Church kind of had a stranglehold on most of everything,
Yes.
and it was largely because other religious groups wanted to get a piece of the cake too, but they couldn't do it in Europe.
Right.
And so they decided to come somewhere new where they could have their own rules.
Right. That's why
And
I
their
said
own way to lord
religious
over people.
freedom.
Yeah, it was freedom in the sense that it was another way to control people, just not under the Catholic Church. It was for their own ends.
They wanted religious freedom, and they didn't have it there because of the Catholic Church.
Religion is the opioid of the masses.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yes.
They wanted to be. Yeah.
They wanted their own space, their own area to worship as they pleased.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not for persecution per se. It was because they weren't able to worship as they wanted to, and so they said, "We're going to move away."
Okay.
Well, no, I think. Are you arguing with that?
There's a lot of extra that comes along to it. We like to just say that it was fleeing religious persecution.
No, I didn't say persecution. They wanted
Seeking
the
religious freedom.
freedom to worship as they wanted to, as they were not able to in
Right.
Europe. So
Okay. I don't have the facts in front of me
Okay.
to quote, but there's a lot of contention around. All I know is that I have.
So is there politics involved in it? I'm sure there was, because
some of it is politics, and some of it is just that religious leaders in the movement, in the, what is it, not Protestant movement? Would it be Protestant movement? Pilgrims would have been falling under the Quaker movement. Well, the Quakers.
Yeah.
I mean, most hardline Baptist-esque religious groups exist to not exist to control people, but in function they control people.
Well, hold on.
And it's harder to do that when you have the Catholic Church breathing down your neck.
We're gonna address the control issue, because I think it's a point of contention with you and I.
Okay.
Religious is the opiate of the masses.
Religion is the opiate of the masses, yes.
Religion is the opiate of the masses.
Person is smart, but people are dumb, panicky creatures, and we know it.
You could say that about any organization, anywhere of any kind. Is the goal of any organization, if it be a religious organization, if it be governments, if it be the Rotary Club, if it be any organization, the role of the organization is to control people. It just is. That's what it does. It creates these boundaries and says, here's what we like, here's what we believe, here's what we do, here's who we help, here's who we don't help, here's our bank account, here's our building, here's our Rotary Park. Any organization anywhere is built to control people.
Yeah.
So anybody who looks at a religion and says, "Ooh, that's a horrible thing," as all it wants to do is control people, is being unfair, as every organization is built to control people.
Yeah. And I
including your
against a lot of
government,
organizations. Yeah.
and our government.
They are. Absolutely. And I criticize them heavily because of it.
But if
Same
we
reason
didn't,
that I criticize celebrity worship.
but if we
or
didn't
fandoms
have
in
it,
general.
we would be a free for all, and I don't think you would be happy in that either.
We don't know because we've never really managed to do it yet. Humanity as a whole has never really managed to function as a large-scale society without some form of religion being the glue. And
So-
America was supposed to be the first secular government. It was designed originally as a secular government. One nation under God wasn't added until the 50s, 1950s.
So what you're saying to me is that you would rather have a world in which you worked for Northern Trust and you walked in one morning and it's payday and Mallory says, "Yeah, and I don't feel like paying you." And you're like, "Ooh, there's rules to corral you and to say you have to pay me."
The fact that there are rules isn't a matter of control.
Yes, it is. It's control. Every organization,
what
every
end?
society,
That's-
every
that-
group.
When you're talking about something like that, that is control for the sake of efficiency, because if he's not paying me, I'm not going to work. And if I'm not going to work, then he's not going to have a product. And so he has to pay me to work so that I'll work to make a product so that he can make money to pay himself and to pay me.
Absolutely.
But he doesn't have the rules in place so that he can control me. He has the rules in place to run an efficient business.
No, the rules are in place to control him, not you.
Either or.
Well, no, the
But-
rules do control him.
But religion is not exclusively made for the benefit of humanity. You could argue that I would argue that some people within religion are genuinely doing it for the betterment of people because they care and they want to save lives. But the farther up the totem pole you get, the larger religion gets, as opposed to being a personal relationship with a deity, the more you get into it being there to control people. If it wasn't there to control people, why would they so heavily criticize any level of questioning? Now, this is obviously me referencing the bad side of religion, not all religious people.
And we're going to get
look-
to that in a minute with the other
Yeah.
picture on the front, on the thumbnail. But
Mhm.
when we look at religion
Mhm.
and you say there's horrible people in religion and they do horrible things, you could say that about any group of any kind, of any number of people at any point in history.
And they all deserve to be called out for it.
But it's not a majority. So we say, okay, there's horrible people, and there are horrible people in any group, in any aspect of society, in any. If you look at society and you take take a picture of it, there are horrible people in every aspect of society. There just are. I think you have one in leadership in your country and one in leadership in other countries.
Yeah.
But you can't throw the whole thing away and say it's all bad as there are bad people there.
I'm not necessarily saying that all religion is bad. I think I've added the clarification that there are many people within religion and some religions that are perfectly acceptable.
Yes, except
there are-
except you say that the goal of it is for control and therefore
Large scale religion. But especially when you get into mixing politics and religion, I don't think there's any world that exists where politics and religion can function together and it's not malicious in some to at least some extent.
okay, I'm going to leave you talk.
More importantly, I don't think that government should be playing favorites in what is supposedly supposed to be a secular country. I don't think the government should be playing favorites with one religion or another.
Okay, I'm going to leave you here and you can talk and I will queue up the next video.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how much more I have to say about that, but I don't like the idea of any one religion having the backing of government. I don't like the idea of any people in government. I don't want. There's actually, you know what? There's a great episode in West Wing about this. God, I love West Wing, where when President Bartlett is going to be stepping down, the two people who are running to replace him as president, one of them, the Republican nominee, is an atheist, and he doesn't want to disclose the fact that he's an atheist because he's worried that it'll kill him in the polls. And he has a great moral conundrum about not being openly and outwardly Christian because he's worried that it'll hurt his political aspirations. And I hate the fact that is even a factor that exists in government, that a person's religion in government is something that can be held over their head like leverage.
So
I don't like that.
I would agree with you on that, although I think the fact is in the U.S., it's recognized as a voting bloc.
Yeah.
As is every aspect of society. If it be the Hispanics or the blacks or the whites or the Christians or most likely the Satanists are probably polled as well because it's viewed as a portion of society. If you look at every aspect of society, and to say I hate the thought that any aspect of society, of our society, is used as a voting thing, well, of course they are.
I don't like the fact that it can be levied because it's so powerful. It's one thing for it to be a voter block because everything is a voter block, but I am uncomfortable with the fact that a religious voter block
But if it is,
has so much power.
but if it is a powerful block, it must mean that there's a lot of folks who believe it.
Potentially, yeah.
And if there's a lot of folks who believe it, then why would we have a problem with that? Because it obviously is a portion of society that we have to acknowledge.
Sort of.
Sort of what?
It's gonna be interesting to see in the next 10 to 20 years how that perception changes, because I think that I'm gonna use harsh words here, and I don't mean them harsh. It's just the easiest way to describe them. So I don't mean them necessarily as derogatory. But there's a whole bunch of old fogies in government that are all going to start dying out in the next 10 to 20 years / retiring.
We can only hope.
And they're going to get replaced by lots of young people where rates of secularism are much, much, much higher.
True.
And I'm intrigued to see, is it going to be a smooth transition as we realize that the newer generations don't care about religion as much or don't vote with religion as much? Or are we going to see old people clinging to power and being more and more aggressive with shoving it down people's throats in an attempt to push back against that?
So I do think that, yes, you'll see old people hang on to power as long as they can until they die off, which I think is a shame, because I think we ought to have younger people in power. I think we need to have a younger generation involved in politics. I don't know how to say that. And that wasn't harsh at all, by the way. I don't think that was harsh. I think that's a reality. Harshly, or to say harsh things, I think would be to ignore the vast number of, for lack of a better word, to say a Christian right. To ignore them and say your ideas really don't matter.
I don't want to say their ideas don't matter. I just don't want their ideas to get special treatment anymore.
But what if they're the majority? Then they sort of have to.
I mean,
because
if
they are the majority.
If they want to do that, then okay. But at that point, we need to stop saying that America is a land for all, because it's not. It's being positioned as a land for Christians.
Wait a minute. You don't have to be a Christian if you want to live in the U.S.
No.
Or in Canada.
But if you want all that special treatment, you do. There's incentives to be Christian just to make your life a little bit easier.
There is incentives in lots of nations and lots of areas to do all sorts of things.
And I want to be better than them.
And the reason
I want to be better
is because that is who is represented.
Yeah.
His representational government, I think, is fair. It's what most of the democracies are born on.
I suppose so. But I don't like... I don't like my tax dollars being utilized, or not even my tax dollars being utilized, because this is kind of devolving down to down a bit of a rabbit hole where I also don't think that many religious organizations should be tax exempt. If my tax dollars are paying for buildings that can be used for religious purposes, I feel like religious groups should be paying their share into buildings that are not going to be used for religious purposes.
We're going to come back to that because I
yeah,
doubt
religious
we're
taxation
far apart on that.
Yeah, I think that's a whole different subject in and of itself. I don't want to get too embroiled in that.
Well, I think it's a part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we go on to the next final clip?
Instead, as Thomas Jefferson said, we should erect a wall of separation between church and state. He knew firsthand, as they all knew, the disparity and inequity that each of the major religions wrought wherever and whenever they could. So the Founding Fathers devised a system of government that was the antithesis of the one associated with Moses, the very opposite of the theocratic autocracy that Christian nationalists say they want now, that they pretend we always had. Instead, the founders followed Democritus, not Moses, nor Jesus. You don't have to believe in any faith. Here, all are equal. None have privilege over another, and that includes those like myself who have no faith at all. Thus, the United States was the first ever secular government, the first to admit that laws were written by men, not gods, the first nation that was not devoted to one god or another, but a government of, by, and for the people, with only a vague reference to whoever or whatever they might imagine their creator to be.
So I get where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a flawed position, and I think that he has a flawed position. We all like to see good people do good things.
Mm-hmm.
There is nobody who looks at a person who feeds the hungry or who helps a person and say, ooh, we really need him off the streets. It just isn't in human nature. We want to help people, or the majority of people want to see people helped.
Mm-hmm.
The vast majority of Christians, and then I think this is a safe assumption. I don't think I'm stretching this, are interested in helping people. I've been involved in lots of churches and lots of groups. The vast majority of them are interested in helping people. If it be through food or through giving, or if it's through our time or our money, the vast majority of the desires for the Christianity that hopefully I represent is to help people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how you can have an issue with saying, hey, if you're going to help people, here's a bonus. As there's all kinds of organizations who help people who also get bonuses.
Yes.
There's lots of them, and we don't complain about them.
Shouldn't get it. I think that it is unequally divvied out.
Well, and this is where I think we have a little bit of a disagreement.
God forbid.
A little bit. I once caught a fish this big. Can't see it on the camera. As when you look at Christianity and you say, hey, if you're going to allow it in the halls of power, if you're going to have a day of prayer, if you're going to have a day, or if you're going to go for school prayer or any of these other areas in which it is a Christian thing, if the values of it were bad, if the values of Christianity were not healthy or helpful, I could see the reticence. But they aren't. And so when I
Sort
see
of.
the pushback against Christianity and say,
Sort of.
sort of what?
The values being good.
Why are the values not good?
It's not so much that the values themselves are bad. The
Okay.
values of mercy, grace, compassion, etc.
Yes.
Those are great. Those are great values. I tend to take umbrage with how they are enforced. But there's also the other values that we're kind of glossing over. Things like control over reproductive systems, things like abstinence, things around teaching of sexual health in general. There's a whole bunch of other areas in which Christendom fails drastically. And I'm not saying that damns them entirely, but I don't want to gloss over the fact that those problems exist.
I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of sexual reproduction organs and that kind of stuff in sex ed.
Even
We
just
sort of hit that last time, so we're going to stay away from that
even
one.
just enforcement of their ideals in general, I think they tend to overreach.
But there is no enforcement.
Not necessarily on a government level, but
There's not.
now see,
If there was
yeah,
enforcement, you wouldn't have gay marriage, you wouldn't have abortion, or any one of the things that you have in Canada, and at the moment we have
took us
here.
this long to figure that out, though.
But William, you had the votes, and you got your way. And I would argue that, hey, maybe it's not working as well as you thought it should. So maybe now there are folks who are saying, hey, we need to change it. And you're saying, oh my gosh, no, you can't change it because why? Because
Maybe it's not working the way we wanted it to. Almost every social change we've made has turned out to be a positive.
I would
Economic
argue that.
changes, not so much, but social ones?
I would argue that.
Oh,
Yes. Oh.
you piqued my curiosity. How has gay marriage hurt society?
How has gay marriage hurt society? It hasn't.
Okay. Pick a different one. What's a progressive social ideal that we've relatively recently had ratified that may be detrimental to society, that hasn't turned out the way we wanted it to? Trans inclusionism? That's worked
The
out
right
pretty
to
damn good so
die.
far. Great. Love it.
I know.
I think it's worked
I
out
don't.
fantastic.
I don't think it's helpful for society.
They're going to die one way or the other, whether a doctor does it or they do it with something else in their own time and make it
Yes.
messy, and have a
Yes.
family have to clean up from it.
Yes.
I see it as a net win. I haven't seen otherwise yet.
This is a perspective. You agree with it. There's a whole lot of people who don't. There's a
Why
whole
wouldn't
lot of
they?
people on the
That's where-
abortion side. There's a whole lot of people, even on the gay marriage side. I don't happen to agree, but there's a whole lot of people on the abortion side who say it absolutely is a net detriment. There's a whole lot of
I mean,
really
if
smart people who look at the trans movement, and they say that here's the difference. If you ask the majority of Christians, and not everyone, but the majority of Christians, say, hey, what's wrong with the trans movement? The majority of us are going to say, you know what? You do you. I don't have to agree. I don't have to like it. I don't have to support it, except I don't care. The majority will say, you do you. But that's not good enough. Here is where we see issues.
Is equality and safety, and we're not there yet. So we keep talking about it. They're not treated as equal. Trans people they're still not equivalent citizens as a general rule. The small forms of special treatment that they get, I don't want them to get special treatment. I just want them to be treated like everyone else. Currently, it's a balancing act because they're not being treated equally or equitably in some areas of life. And so in other areas, they're getting benefits like, say Medicare helping with certain costs along the lines of transitioning or medication.
So when
they can be barred from certain bathrooms, they're being looked down upon because of who they are. They're not equal yet.
So what you look at for Christianity,
you can say that they don't care, but they care.
Well, they don't agree with the lifestyle. I agree with that. I mean, I don't agree with it.
I would like to change I'd like to amend that wording. It's not a lifestyle. It's who they are.
I'm going to let you have the word. I'm not going to agree with you.
You say that like it's a fashion choice. I think it's a bit more than that.
I think that this is one of the areas where we disagree, and then that's okay, because there's a lot of smart people who agree with me. There's a lot of smart people who agree with you. So we're just going to leave that, because
I also want to slightly amend it, because I should amend my amending of that word, because I do regularly point out that gender is a outdated and silly construct of society, and I feel like how a person dresses and how a person presents themselves as male, female, etc., or sorry, as whatever gender they decide to, that is definitely, I guess, a choice. It is a form of expression. But when it comes to identification of themselves on like a harsher level, I'm not sure how exactly I best word that. But I don't like the word lifestyle. I'm just going to say I don't like the word, but you can use it, because I actually don't know a better one.
That's fine.
Yeah, I don't know a better one, so I want to rescind my original objection.
You sound like it's a court of law. We're not that far. And we're definitely not that smart.
Definitely not.
Here's the area that I kind of want to get back to Billy Graham.
Mm-hmm.
And I raised you kids with this is my mantra.
Mm-hmm.
You will catch more flies with
honey
than vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
If you be good to people, hopefully you will win in the long run. And I think if you look at Billy Graham, he won in the long run. There are few of us in the world today who look at Billy Graham and say he was a horrible guy. What?
Outside of Christendom, you might find plenty of people that think he wasn't a nice guy. I don't have enough information.
I don't think you do. He ranks up there with Mother Teresa, whose whole life was spent helping people. What?
Anyway,
you would argue that?
I disagree with Billy Graham being that saintly. If for no other reason than the media empire that he was the head of, things like Focus on the
Family. Is he perfect? He's not.
No. So
you've got the wrong guy. You're talking James Dobson. That's another whole guy.
That's James I thought Focus on the Family was owned by them.
No,
my mistake.
James Dobson.
Then I do apologize. Yes. I don't know enough Billy Graham.
It's Billy Graham. There isn't anybody who's going to say he's perfect. No, but he helped the world. I mean, around the world, he helped people. And we look at him and we say he was a good man.
Okay, because I don't have any information to argue.
Okay, when we look at, here's an easy example. Look at Mother Teresa. Mm-hmm. There is hardly anybody who looks at her and say she was a bad person, horrible person. Her organization really really should be regulated more, as it's hurting people. No, they didn't, because she helped people. Mm-hmm. You guys, I'm going to say that harshly, because I'm thinking of the people who look at Christians and say, you people need to be different than you are. I can't word it any other way.
I just want them to be better.
But nobody's perfect. But nobody is perfect. But here's what you want, and I believe it. Here's what I hear is what you want. On the part of progressives everywhere, is we want to be able to do what we think is right. Mm-hmm. But the problem with that is there's more of us. And you're saying it doesn't matter because
there's more of you in government.
I think there's more of us in general, except vote us out. And I tell every kid this. I tell everybody this. Vote us out. See how long it works for you. I want to challenge you. I really want to challenge you.
We're working on it as best we can.
Have a conversation with a teacher today. You, William Smith, have a conversation with a teacher.
Okay.
And ask them how it's going in terms of allowing the youth to do and to express themselves how they feel. Ask a teacher.
Okay. I know a couple of teachers.
Okay, ask a few of them.
That I mean, the ones that I know and have worked with and around are very much. I'm assuming you have a response that you're expecting that I'll get.
No, I think you will see.
Because every teacher, or almost every teacher that I have any kind of contact with, is very much pro children expressing themselves as they see fit, with the pronouns and the clothing that they see fit to express themselves with. Because it doesn't matter to the teacher how they express themselves, as long as they do it in a safe and as long as they're safe about it, basically.
Here's a rule here in the schools, and this is all in the foundation of this is that you need to express yourself. There's a rule in the States, and I believe it's in BC as well, is that any kid who acts out, if he gets violent, you are not allowed, as a teacher, to do anything to restrain him. All you can do is leave the room and exit the room. Because he has to be able to express himself, and we can't stop him.
I don't think it's as much an expressing himself as much as the teacher doesn't want to get sued. And the school boards don't want to get sued.
No, they're not allowed to do it.
Yeah, I know.
They're not allowed to stop it.
Because they're afraid of lawsuits. I don't think that has anything to do with letting them express themselves. I think that might be some corporate doublespeak they're throwing up there.
I don't think so.
I feel like it is an avoidance of lawsuits and responsibility. Because allowing a teacher to reprimand or control or otherwise correct bad behavior in a kid like that is asking for an angry parent. Teachers are way more afraid of angry parents than they are of children. Infinitely more
absolutely.
And that's a recipe for angry parents right there.
But they aren't allowed to control the kids.
Yeah.
They are not allowed to.
To a degree, I would agree.
Because they have to be free to express themselves.
I mean, yes,
they
but
have
again,
to be
I think,
free. You
I
can't
think
lay.
That's the corporate doublespeak.
I don't think you'll find a lot of support for that.
I don't know. I mean, again, I would have to have an in-depth conversation, but I can't see, in my mind's eye, a teacher just letting a kid throw a tantrum because they want them to express themselves. They're doing it because, for legal reasons, they can't intervene. They have to let the kid let it out. And if I were a person running a school board, I would be wording it as let the kid express themselves and not, we're not going to touch your kid because we don't want you to sue us, you crazy bastards. It's great legalese.
I think that we're looking at society, and I think in the prayer thing is a good example in saying if you are a Christian, or if you are a Satanist or a believer in the Satanic Temple or whatever that is, you ought to be equal under the law or for rights. What I would ask you is, who does more good? Who does more good in society? Yeah? Look at the Salvation Army. Look at Billy Graham.
The Salvation Army has a lot going against it.
Everybody does, Will. Everybody does. You can't look at that and say
you can
and say
how much of the bad stuff they do balances out to the good stuff they do.
Do you really think that?
To a certain degree.
Do you really think that
leadership in an organization diddles enough kids? You kind of question whether it's worth it for the greater good.
Okay, that's not the Salvation Army.
Look at the Catholic Church.
Catholic Church, yes.
They're a great example.
Yes.
And it's too common a problem. The Salvation Army, you have the embezzlement of money, I believe, was their latest big scandal. Was some higher-ups were skimming money off the top. But either way, I just mean that...
So are you asking for perfection?
What I'm asking for is for them to stop being given a pass because they're Christian or preferential treatment. If they want to do good things, do good things. If they want to be Christian while doing good things, do the good things. But don't ask for special treatment, and don't ask like everyone else isn't allowed to do the same things in the same spaces. If we're supposedly a free country, because part of the reason for the speech in the Satanic Temple there is
Right.
because that they show up and they're gawked at.
Well, Idaho is a Christian state. It's who voted the people in. They
Okay.
are a Christian state.
But they're in America, where they're
Yes.
supposed to accept everyone equally.
But they do.
But
They
do they?
do. Yes, they absolutely do. If you're in Idaho, you can be a Satanist. Nobody stops you from being a Satanist in Idaho.
No.
Nobody stops you. So why aren't you free to be a Satanist?
You are free to be a Satanist,
Okay.
but you get bonus points for being a Christian.
Well, yes, because there's more of
Get
you.
advantages.
There's more of you, and they've voted in the politicians who agree with them. Absolutely. That's how representation of the people by the people works.
See, I think that is.
And you're looking at it and say, I don't like it because I'm not one of you.
I'm saying that.
This is hard for me to give much ground on. As for me, it's good people doing really good things, and there are some bad apples.
On the ground level, I think it is mostly good people doing good things. I think they're being manipulated as a voter base. And I think that they're voting for politicians who say that they're Christian and hold Christian values and use that as a ruse to push their own agendas. And they get special treatment because it ensures that they'll keep voting for those people.
And on that, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Holy cow, did we agree on one thing tonight?
We did. And so I think if we want to boil it down, that's where a lot of my frustration comes in. It's not with the people wanting to worship the way they want to worship, where they want to worship, because I don't really care about that as long as they're not hurting anybody while doing it. I don't like that they're being given preferential treatment by government as a way to buy their loyalty from government so the government can get voted in.
The issue, though, is not with the individuals on the ground. It's with the politicians.
No. I rarely have issues with individual Christians. I am friends with quite a few very devout Christians. I mean, one of my best friends is a diehard Baptist.
Your parents are.
You're not Baptist.
No, I'm a diehard Christian.
Evangelical. Yeah,
I'm a
you
diehard
guys are definitely Christian.
Yes.
I say Baptist because it's like hardline baptism. Like I'm going to burn in the fiery pits of hell for eternity for a laundry list of things that I have done. But that person loves me all the same, and I love them all the same, even though I disagree wholeheartedly with many of their life philosophies. It doesn't matter. I still think they're a good they're a genuinely amazing human being. And we can disagree on those things. On the ground, like boots on the ground level people, I don't take much umbrage with them or their beliefs, but I take issue with government leveraging that belief as a means to an end. And that's, again, why I think...
I guess I would say to you, though, that if you look at all politicians, their whole role or the goal or the means of getting elected is you leverage whoever's available to leverage.
And I guess this then speaks into a broader conversation of I wish people could see through the BS better. I wish people who are religious could see through the BS that they're spoon-fed by Republicans better. And I wish that people on the progressive people could see through the what's the word I'm looking for? The pipe dreams that some liberal politicians have.
Here's the thing that I would, and we can definitely hit this in another show as we're nearing an hour here. The is if you want the vote of the Christians or of the Christian right, I'll put it that way because I think it's a valid. They will ask you, you need to do things that we want you to do as the Christian right. What's wrong with that? You would do the same on your side. So if your candidate is elected, who you voted for, and you said, hey, I want the UBI, and he looks and say, you're my voting base, so I guess I should, as it agrees with you.
And you know what?
And you voted him in for that.
I guess that does speak to, no matter how hard I try to maintain a level of as long as no matter how hard I try to be unbiased about these things, I definitely have a bias towards or away from decisions made by government or by anyone for religious reasons as opposed to reasons. If someone could provide me with a genuinely good reason for why an identical policy to something that a Christian right politician might want could be done that didn't involve religion, I think I would end up being more receptive to the idea. But the idea that their imaginary God is the one who's incentivizing them to do that makes me immediately distrust it, because it's not coming from a point. In my point of view, the point of origin for that decision isn't intelligence or reason or logic. It's because God told me so, and I don't like that. And that is
accept.
Yeah. I'm saying that not to say that I think that is right. I think to a certain extent that's a failing of my own, that I inevitably do have a chip on my shoulder about decisions being made from that point of view. If they can back those decisions up with valid evidence, then I can see past the religious aspect of it.
Here's one thing that I will agree with you on, and I think I want to end it on this if you're okay with it.
Yeah.
There's one thing that drives me crazy, absolutely around the bend, and again, and it honestly is with the Christian right. And I'm one of them. We have an election every 4 years in the U.S., or every 4 years, alternating years for Congress. We will find a candidate, i.e. Trump. And all of a sudden, every Christian is saying he is the best thing since Ronald Reagan. And he's not the best thing since Ronald Reagan or whoever else is you hear, Abraham Lincoln. He's not. And it's okay, you know. So it honestly, I don't have an issue if you look at a person like whoever you're voting for and saying he's a means unto my end as I'm voting for these reasons. If it's for abortion rights or for gay rights or for whatever rights, and you say he or she is a means unto my end, I'm okay with that. But please,
they're God's gift to mankind.
The fervor with Trump in the evangelical right was absolutely.
Bonkers.
Well, it turned a lot of people against Christians simply because they ignored everything wrong with Trump.
I see there's a lot of parallels with Hillary Clinton as well.
Yes.
I infinitely trust and respect people who were willing to say, hey, I don't like Hillary, but I think she's the best shot we've got at making this work. The people who are like, Hillary's the best thing ever, go get him. Tiger, you're the next coming of Jesus that doesn't exist. Like, it's, I don't like, this is another topic that I think I would love to have an episode on sometime, is just general hero worship. I think that especially in this online era, it's really easy to find a hero and just worship them because you only see one side of them, because that's the side that the algorithm curates for you. And it's really easy to build up this unrealistic picture of a person or a group.
Yeah.
And we tend to worship them. And I don't like it. I don't like any kind of hero. I don't like worshiping anyone or anything. My distaste for religion goes that far. I don't like worshiping people. I don't like worshiping bands or media or even necessarily concepts. I don't like the idea of worshiping certain political ideologies. I think all of them have pros and cons, and all of them are valid, or all of them are worthy of criticism.
Here's where you end up on that. And again, no, okay. I'm not going to go there. I think it's another topic for another show. I think we need to end this because I think we could go on forever on this disagreement, and
We could actually. Time
and
flew by.
it's not productive. And I think we've spent an hour
Hmm.
on a topic that we don't agree on
But hey,
at almost
Still
any
love you.
level. I still love you. I have to because you're my son.
you could
Does
try.
that change the? I'm contractually obligated
Yeah.
to love you.
Have you ever seen the play or the movie Fences? You ever seen that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, there's this heart wrenching scene. The play is actually really cool because it's like James Earl Jones when he was younger.
Oh, no way. I'll have to
Like
watch it.
he's like this old black guy, and his kid's there, and he's giving his kid crap or something or other, and the kid's like all broken up, and the kid's like, "Man, why don't you like me?" And his dad's like, "I brought you into this world. I feed you, I clothe you, but nobody said I had to like you. There's no rule that says I have to like you. You're my son. It's my duty to take care of you, but I don't have to like you. I appreciate the fact that I actually do like you, and I like to think that you like me.
I
You're
really
not
do
just
like you.
contractually obligated."
I love
care
all
about
my
me.
kids, actually. I really do. From you, the oldest, all the way down, not to Jacob, the youngest.
Mhm.
I think all of you are the bee's knees. Is that how it
The
goes?
bees. Yeah, bees knees. Yeah.
The bee's knees. And I can't imagine life without any of you. And so all of our disagreements aside, and Lord knows I have disagreements with all of you. Alex is into golf now. It's all-
It's okay.
hung-
There has to be one in every family. You know,
I'm
Every
gonna
family
have
has
to
a black
start
sheep.
because I want to spend time with Alex, and I can't get him off the green. So,
Just drive the cart and drink the beer,
well, drive the cart anyways. I'm not much of a beer drinker, you know that.
or drink whatever suits your fancy.
There you go. Okay, well, William, do you have anything to say to our fine